Noting that the Israeli military is prepared for many different scenarios, the army stressed that it holds the Syrian government accountable for the actions carried out in its territory and warns it from further action against Israeli forces. Earlier on Wednesday, the IDF used a Patriot missile to take down a surveillance drone that allegedly penetrated some 10 kilometers deep into the airspace over the occupied Golan. A similar engagement was witnessed on June 24th. Israel has intensified its bombing of military infrastructure in Syria over the last couple of months, despite conflict winding down, with terrorists and extremist militants controlling ever-decreasing swaths of land and so-called moderates joining the statewide reconciliation process in growing numbers. And this is not what the Israelis and the U.S. want. They want violence to increase in the region so they have a reason to stay there, because not only do they have business interests there, but the state of Israel wants to be the hegemony in that region with no other states strong enough to go against them. They want vassals. And pretty much gotten to the point of this article as well, so now I'm going to go to my last article, also from RT, titled, U.S. Proxies in Syria Failed, Direct NATO Action Will End in Shame, Iran's top advisor says. Should NATO try to get, which the U.S. is a part of, try to get directly involved in Syria, it will end in failure on the scale of the Vietnam War, says the senior foreign policy advisor to Iran's supreme leader. Any engagement in the region would be a swamp, he said. And if we remember in Jeremiah 49:20, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. So not only would a major attack, retaliation attack on Israel by Syria or Iran or some kind of false flag to make it look like that draw the United States into a war with those countries, but with the United States getting drawn in, it would also draw in those other NATO members, because the U.S. is the big boy in NATO that calls the shots, the one whose look was more stout than his fellows. A NATO task force is ready to deploy on short notice as part of the alliance's commitment to Turkey against the growing security challenges from the south, a Wednesday joint statement by the bloc leader said. Supreme Leader al-Khamenei's senior foreign policy advisor believes it means NATO is preparing for direct involvement in Syria, one that is bound to fail spectacularly. These dreams of NATO and its head, Mr. U.S. President Donald Trump, will never be realized, said Ali Akbar Velayati, who served as the Iranian's foreign minister in the 1980s and 90s. He was speaking at the Valdai Discussion Club in Russia. Trump and his NATO agents tried to use trained terrorists to overthrow the Syrian government, and that operation failed. They now want to put their forces on the border between Turkey and Syria and fight directly. They couldn't overthrow Bashar Assad's government with provocations, and they won't be able to do it through direct involvement, he added. Velayati believes NATO is testing the waters, seeing how far they can push Russia, who has been active in the region, assisting Assad against terrorist groups in Syria. They want to run some kind of test to see if NATO can go to a scene where Russia is present and do something there. The next step could be Ukraine, he said. He went on to compare any potential involvement in Syria to the Vietnam War, an almost 20-year-long conflict where the U.S. invaded Vietnam to overthrow the communist forces and was ultimately defeated despite military superiority. NATO should know that their presence in the region would be the presence in a bog, and there's no way to get out of that bog except through shame. If they don't believe that, let them come and see, Velayati said. Let the weak say I am strong. U.S. unworthy of negotiations. Iran has been antagonized by the U.S. over the presence of its military advisors assisting the Syrian government in the 7-year-long conflict. Ending its involvement is one of the demands Washington has voiced for renewing talks on the agonizing 2015 nuclear deal between Iran and the West, but it's not something Iran is willing to bargain over. We didn't ask the U.S. for permission to go into Syria, and their threats won't make us leave. Our presence in Syria and Iraq is due to requests from those countries' legitimate rulers, Velayati said. After Trump's withdrawal from the nuclear deal, Tehran sees no sense in talking to him. We don't want to negotiate with the Americans. We don't need it. We don't think this administration, Mr. Trump and his representatives, are worthy of talking to. Those people violate the Iran-related commitments established by the UN Security Council. They can't be trusted, Velayati said. He added, why should we talk to them? So they can make unfounded statements and then issue propaganda claims that they tried to talk to Iran? Iran and the remaining signatories of the deal, the UK, France, Germany, Russia, China, and the EU, have been working hard to salvage the agreement after Washington's withdrawal. All parties are prepared to go the distance without the U.S., Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov recently said. Slovakia. So as you can see, things are they're just heating up by the second. We got to keep our eyes in here so we can keep building our faith up to see that we're at the door, brothers.